If you ever want to have some fun at your own expense, try to find some old video of yourself from 10, 20 years ago, whatever it is, and take a look at it. It's pretty interesting when you look at that and say, holy cow, I looked like that or I acted like that back in the day. And in this little video, which I'm going to call From the Archives, that's exactly what I'm going to have you guys do, is laugh at me a little bit. So I shot a video 10 years ago, according to the date, 2012, that was actually not even in this house. It was in the other house, in the other garage, when I was working on my old Kawasaki KZ1100. And I was restoring or refurbishing the covers on the saddlebags. So I shot a video, which is kind of a tutorial video on how to do that. And this was on my other, if you will, YouTube channel. You know, a lot of times you have a main channel and then a, your business channel, whatever the case may be. And this was my main or my personal YouTube channel. So I downloaded it. For some reason it was set for private, so probably nobody's seen it anyway, because I didn't know what the hell I was doing back then. And I did a little quick editing on it, and I put it up for your enjoyment. So I hope you get something out of it, laugh a little bit, maybe even cry. I know I am. But it's still pretty good content in my opinion. So here it is. Enjoy. Catch you on next video.
One of the biggest challenges in either refurbishing or restoring an old motorcycle is paint and body work. Take this 82 KZ1100 Vetter hard bag that I'm working on today. This bag has a painted lid, so I'm going to be working on only the lid because the body has its own embedded color when it was extruded and molded. This lid here has got a lot of scratches, it has some damage down here, and it really needs to be totally redone. Problem is, we have to repair the damage, we have to get these decals off, and then we have to do the actual prep work and the painting so we can prepare to put some decals on, or some sort of a reproduction or facsimile like pinstriping. So I'm going to go over what I found to be a pretty decent way of doing all this. And of course the first thing I have to do is I have to take the lid off the bag. Okay, I'm going to talk really quick about color. We could have an entire dialogue that's hours long in regards to color. I'm no expert in painting, I don't profess to be, but I can tell you that depending on your budget, if you have the resources, send the part out, have it done professionally. You won't be disappointed with the results. In my case, and in many folks' case, they're doing a refurbishment. They can get away with using rattle can paint if they can get the actual color right. And I lucked out on this KZ1100 A2, the 82 model, 1982 that is, that this is a luminescent passion red, and there's a current Toyota color that's almost identical to it, and it's also metallic and luminescent. So that's what I'm going to be using on this project. But again, if you have the resources, go to the paint store, have the color matched, shoot it yourself if you have the tools and the spray mechanism to do that. If not, send it out. You won't be disappointed with the results. But I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised at what we can achieve simply using rattle can products and a lot of time, patience, and prep work. Okay, the next step is actually removing the decal. As you can see, I have started it on this particular project, so I'll show you how I got to that point. You'll need a heat source. In this case, I'm using a hair dryer. You can use a heat gun, but be very careful with a heat gun. Heat guns generate a lot more heat than your standard hair dryer, and you can damage the paint, burn yourself, damage the surface you're working on, etc. So I prefer a hair dryer for this. It provides adequate heat and it's much more controllable. How I started an edge to begin peeling this off is pretty simple actually. I took the hair dryer and I concentrated it on one spot, maybe for about 30 seconds or so. Once you do it a little bit, you'll figure out how long it takes, because once you heat a spot, you need to take a tool or a little knife or something. In this case, I use a pick tool, and got up underneath the decal straight across so I can actually get an edge to lift from. It's really important to have as straight an edge as possible. Then it's as simple as applying heat down the line away from your edge evenly with your heat source, or your hair dryer in this case. Now do not go too far away, because of course it'll cool down too much by the time you get there. And the other thing I found with some decals is if you try to apply heat to them as you're peeling them, the heat that is exposed to the actual decal, which is already peeled up, tends to degrade the decal, and the next thing you know it snaps because it stretches out. So that'll take a little trial and error on your part, but essentially it's as simple as heating it up a certain length. I go 2-3 inches in this particular case, in this size decal, and then slowly peel it. And I'll show you how that works here. So I finished my heating, and now I'm going to apply gentle pressure, and the decal will come off. Just take some patience and some time. And I waited till I got to this corner to show you how to deal with this. Many times you cannot pull straight up and peel on a corner. What you want to do is essentially lean into the corner, like you're steering a motorcycle around a corner. And in that case, a lot of times you can distribute that stretch across the turn rather of the decal, because the decal is naturally a little bit wider at that point. It is a turn or a curve. So once you make that curve, you can go back to pulling straight, and I can feel it tightening up a little bit. So what I have to do now is I have to stop, and I have to continue to heat and continue the decal removal on the whole piece. Alright, now it's time to get this blasted glue off that seems to always remain after you take a decal off, whether it's metal or plastic, as your surface. There's a couple ways you can do this. You can try the simplest to the most extreme. The most extreme I would consider a chemical solvent. I'm going to show you both here because in this particular example they both work. You can reheat the surface with your heat source right over the glue, and then use just simple friction, which will tend to roll up the glue in those little balls that stick everywhere, but you get the glue off. It takes a long time and it's not always successful. So if you need to use a solvent, you have to essentially think about what product, as far as paint and clear coat, is most likely on the surface that you're working with. I was pretty sure that these vintage early 80s bikes, they used an acrylic lacquer. I'm pretty sure they used an acrylic lacquer paint and therefore clear coat back in the day. So took some lacquer thinner, and this is what I did. I simply took very carefully in a well ventilated area without any flames, no smoking of course, and got some lacquer thinner on the tip of a rag, tipped my finger with the rag over my finger, and I just run it on the actual glue itself. Try to stay off the paint as much as possible. And then I do it again. And you can see actually that the glue starts to break down after a couple of applications of this. And after I feel that I've essentially soaked a spot long enough, all I take is my handy dandy paint stick and can pretty much roll up this glue quite easily. And it won't scratch the paint a whole lot because we're simply scraping along the clear coat. And this takes a tremendous amount of this glue off, gets it out of your hair, and then you can move on. There's going to be a little remaining. You can retreat, take it off with a rag, and get it pretty much almost 100% off. The rest of it we'll take off with some wet sanding. So let me go ahead and get the glue off, and then we'll resume after that. Alright, we got the glue probably 99% off. There are a couple of stubborn spots, but there always are. So don't worry about that, because the next steps are your standard skills that you probably already have if you're watching this video, of wet sanding and preparing the surface for paint, which includes doing any repairs, etc. For example, this nick right here, I'll sand this down, fill the corner with some standard auto body Bondo, and reshape that, and then get that prepared for paint. And you can get any of the glue remnants that just doesn't want to let go off with wet or dry sandpaper. I use a spray bottle with a very small amount of your standard type of kitchen soap and water, and then I start off with 400, 800 and go up with grits from there. It depends on the quality of the finished product I'm interested in. If I want something really high end, I'll go all the way up to 1500 grit sandpaper, and some folks may even go up to 2000. In this case, I went up to 1000, and that's all I'd probably do in this particular project, because I'm not looking for perfection. Remember, the entire bike is not being painted, so I don't want these things to jump out too much. I just want them to look good. So that's the next step, is the sanding, prep for painting, any repairs, and then you can just about be finished. And speaking of finished, or near finished at least, this is the lid from the other bag that I started earlier. As you can see, I have it repaired, painted, and there's one coat of clear. And I actually applied these pinstripes, which were I got at the auto parts store. I lucked out on the color, this deep gold color, and then I clear coated over top of it. Is it perfect? Well, no, it's not perfect. But again, I'm not going for perfection on this. I don't want these to jump out so much compared to the rest of the bike. I want to make them look essentially the same age as the rest of the bike does, because the rest of the bike has very nice paint. These bags did not. They were damaged and faded and so forth. So as long as I achieve that level of restoration, then I'm completely satisfied. So that's an example of what I'm going for. Perhaps it's something you might want to do too, and this is just one way to get there.